Hi guys, in this video I would like to talk to you about public speaking, because public speaking is one of the biggest fears people have. And when you think about it, most people are afraid of public speaking to some extent, including people who are really good at it. Okay? There are some professional speakers who admit that sometimes they feel very anxious before getting on the stage. And by the way, when you're watching those videos made by me, you may be thinking, wow, this guy made hundreds, if not thousands of videos. He must be a very confident presenter. The truth is that I have moments when I feel very anxious before presenting. Now you may ask yourself, why is that? Well, the reality is a little bit counterintuitive. Basically, everybody expects me to do very well because they know that this is what I do for a living. They see all those videos, so they assume that when I get on the stage, I'm going to be like Tony Robbins. I'm going to totally nail it. And because of that high expectation, I feel pressure because I want to over-deliver, right? And I know that I can't just simply get on the stage and talk normally. I have to over-deliver. And this is why sometimes before I present on the stage, I feel a little bit anxious. So for example, a few years ago, I used to work for Goldman Sachs in London, and I had a situation when I needed to present in front of, I think, 50, 60 people, something like that. It was a very important presentation, and I'll never forget the morning before the presentation. I went to the office and I couldn't focus on anything. Okay, I had to go to a small room, and I spent all my time rehearsing the presentation because I was stressed. I was simply afraid. I'm not afraid to admit it now. I was afraid. I was anxious because of all of those expectations. People would walk up to me in the office and say, hey man, I'm really excited about your presentation. You're gonna nail it. You know, people would say things like that, and it only built that pressure even further. So it's normal to be afraid. It's normal to be anxious, but the question is how you manage that anxiety. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you some of my best techniques and strategies that will help you to build your confidence before presenting. I'll be talking to you about the inner game, what you can do with your mind before you even get on the stage in order to feel more comfortable. I'm going to share with you how you can prepare for your presentations so when you get on the stage, you can totally nail it. So I hope that you'll enjoy this video, and let's get started. Okay, the first tip is very simple. Over-prepare. Now you may say to yourself, well, that's pretty obvious, but believe me, many people forget about it. Many people assume that if they prepare a little bit, they will be fine. But the way I see it, when you present on a stage or in front of the camera, you don't just talk to one person, you talk to many, many different people. You have to do your best to really convey your message in a compelling way, okay? So it's not enough just to prepare a little bit. Make it your commitment to over-prepare. It's as simple as that. The second tip is pretty simple as well. Get familiar with the venue and with your audience whenever possible. So what do I mean by this? Well, basically, we humans, we are very afraid of the unknown. Whenever we don't know something, we feel uncomfortable, all right? So it's very important to familiarize yourself with your venue and with your audience. So if it's possible, try to get to the venue at least one night before and walk around. Ideally, practice your speech on the stage when there is nobody there. Now, if it's not possible, simply walk around and look at the stage, look at all the seats, and imagine that it's full of people, that the room is full of people. Imagine yourself on the stage, all right? It's very powerful because when you start presenting the next day, you will not feel uncomfortable because you are familiar with the place. The fear of the unknown will decrease. Now, the same thing applies to your audience. Now, it may not be always possible. Sometimes you fly in for a conference, you have to present straight away, you don't really have time. But whenever you have some time, for example, when you attend a networking event and you know that you will be presenting in maybe 1, 2, or 3 hours, take your time to get familiar with the audience. Go and talk to them, introduce yourself, make some friends. And by the way, when you present during a conference, your social status, your perceived status is higher. okay, than other people because you are the speaker, right? So everybody looks at you in a little bit different way. So it's very easy to make connections when you are a speaker. So when you talk to people, make sure that you put an effort to get to know them a little bit, okay? Make yourself feel comfortable by getting to know the people, because later on when you're presenting on the stage, you will see some friends in the audience, okay? When you don't know anybody in the audience, it seems as if you are presenting in front of a bunch of strangers. But even if you know 2 or 3 or 4 people, you feel so much more comfortable because you can spot some of the familiar faces amongst the entire audience. And guess what? When you look at them, they look at you, your eyes lock, they'll probably smile because they know that they talked to you before. And it's gonna make you so much more comfortable. You always have to remember that people want you to do well when you are presenting. Now, this may sound obvious, but it's not to many people. When we are presenting on the stage, sometimes we have a feeling that people don't want us to do well, okay? For example, you see that one grumpy face in the audience and you feel like they want you to fail. The reality is that everybody wants you to do well, and there are 2 main reasons I want you to think about. Well, first of all, they are attending your presentation. They don't want to waste their time. They want to get value from you. How can they possibly get value from your speech if you end up not doing well? So they want you to do well because they want to learn from you, okay? You always have to remember that they are in the room because they want to listen to you. It's their choice. The second thing to think about is something totally different. You probably had a situation when you attended a presentation and the speaker started losing composure. Now, how did you feel? You felt bad for the speaker, right? You know the feeling when somebody's presenting and you can see that they start getting really nervous, they start losing composure, they start mumbling, stuttering. You feel awkward, right? You feel a bit embarrassed, you feel bad for them. You say to yourself, oh my God, I hope they're gonna make it. We all have those situations, all right? Because people want you to do well. As I said at the beginning, people are afraid of public speaking. So you have to understand that the people who sit in the audience, when they look at you presenting, they say to themselves, wow, I'm glad he is on stage, not me, because nobody wants to present. So never, ever forget about it. People want you to do well. Another thing you should do before your presentation is to visualize success. Now you may be thinking, it's one of those woo type of things, visualizing success, come on, how can it possibly work? Well, the reality is that our brains are powerful and you can visualize pretty much anything. Now, right now you could close your eyes, you could really focus on visualizing, for example, that you are driving a car. And if you spend enough time doing it and if you put enough effort, trust me, you will start moving to the left and to the right. Try it for yourself if you don't believe. But the point I'm trying to make is that our brains are so powerful that we can visualize pretty much anything. And the funny thing is that very often our minds can't distinguish between what's real and unreal. So when you visualize presenting with success, you kind of trick your brain, okay? If you put enough effort in, you visualize that you speak, that people stand up, give you standing ovation, they love your presentation. If you do it long enough, you trick your brain to believe in that this is actually what happened. And the funny thing is that later on, when you actually start presenting on a real stage in front of real people, you'll have that weird feeling that you've been there before, especially if you know your venue, if you know how it looks like, and when you visualize yourself in the actual venue. You will feel as if you've been already there, and as a result, your level of confidence will increase and you will feel more comfortable. So don't underestimate the power of visualization. And by the way, when I say visualize, I don't mean that this is it, okay? It's enough to simply believe in the law of attraction, okay? And visualize success, and that's it. Of course, you have to work hard, you have to prepare, you have to use all of the other strategies. But what I'm saying is that when you add visualization exercises to everything you already do, you will increase the chance of succeeding. Set a fake deadline before your presentation now. It sounds a little bit crazy, right? So let me explain. I'm sure that you had situations when you had to present, for example, on the 25th of September. And of course, you practiced a lot, you tried to prepare, you did your best. But then right before the presentation, you said to yourself, oh my God, I wish I had one more day, even just a few hours. It would make all the difference. Now, I had those situations many times in my life. For example, many years ago when I was still in a business school, I would study for my exams, I would do my best, and sometimes I would study last minute because I traveled a lot. And then right before entering that examination room, I would say to myself, oh my God, I wish I had only one more day. Even just a couple of hours would make a difference. I would get 80, 90%. And then I figured, you know what, maybe it's a good idea to set a fake deadline just to trick my brain. So when I know that I have, for example, 5 days to study for my exam, it's in fact 6 days. But I trick my brain to thinking that it's only 5 days. So I study. In my mind, I think that I have an exam tomorrow. And then I wake up and I realize, wow, actually I have one more day. Now it may sound a little bit crazy because you may be thinking, how can you possibly trick your brain, to thinking that the date of your exam or your speech is different. But the reality is that, you will always intellectually know the right date, but you can still trick your brain a little bit by setting a fake deadline. So what I recommend is that whenever you have to give a presentation and you have certain date, trick your brain that you have to give that presentation earlier. Okay, make a poster, put it on your bathroom mirror. For example, if your presentation will take place on the 25th of September, put down 23rd of September, big presentation, stick it on the bathroom mirror, because when you look at it many times throughout the day, you'll trick your brain to believing that you have less time. Now, as a result, you will work harder on your presentation, and then you will realize that, wow, actually, I'm prepared, I know everything, but I still have 1 or 2 days left. And that's when you have all that time necessary to perfect your presentation, okay? You know exactly what you want to say, but you can practice on the delivery. You can basically do your best to make it better. So really think about this concept. It worked for me. I'm not sure if it's going to work for you because everybody is different, but I really encourage you to try it for yourself. I'm sure that you had a situation when you were presenting and you felt nervous. You had this strange feeling in your stomach, you were sweating, your heart was beating like crazy, and you felt like you wanted to share it with everybody, all right? You felt like everybody could see those symptoms of nervousness, so we figured, you know what, maybe I should share it with them and say, listen guys, by the way, I'm really sorry, I feel very nervous, I normally don't present, but I'm gonna do my best. The reality is that how you feel is not really reflected in how you look like, okay? Just because you feel extremely nervous, it doesn't mean that everybody can see it. Now, of course, in some cases, if you really feel extremely nervous, you are almost panicking, you start stuttering, you start forgetting what you have to say, well, in this case, you can admit to people that you feel nervous. You can say, look guys, I'm sorry, I feel very nervous, but I'm gonna do my best right now. However, in most cases, people get it wrong. And in most cases, just when they feel a little bit nervous, they feel like they want to verbalize it. And I believe that you should never do it, because the reality is that most people don't pay attention to any symptoms of nervousness. They are paying attention to your message. And by the way, when you're presenting in front of a large audience on a big stage, people are quite far away from you. They can't see all of those signs of nervousness. But the moment you admit that you are anxious, they will look for those signs of nervousness, okay? So they're listening to your presentation, everything is going well, and then at one point you admit that you feel nervous, and they start thinking, actually, yeah, he is a bit nervous. I can see he is blinking his eyes all the time. I can see he has a bit erratic body language. They start noticing those things because you change their focus, okay? So instead of paying attention to your message, they start looking for those signs of nervousness because you told them to. And this is why when you feel just a little bit nervous, don't admit it, just keep going with your speech. I'll never forget a situation that happened to me a few years ago when I was in the executive board of the organization called ISEC. Now we had to present in front of around 100 students I didn't know. Now, when it was my turn to get on the stage, I felt so nervous. Honestly, I felt so nervous, I wanted to run away. But I just kept presenting. I finished my presentation and it seemed like it was fine. But deep inside, I felt bad because to me, it seemed like everybody could notice how nervous I was. So after the presentation, I asked one of my friends, hey, was I really, really nervous? Could you see it? Was it really bad? And they looked at me like, what are you talking about? Were you nervous? I'm like, yeah, I was dying. Honestly, I felt like dying. I said, no, man, you seem really confident. And I couldn't believe in this. So I asked other people what they thought about my presentation. They said exactly the same thing. They told me that I seemed confident. And that was the moment when I realized that how you feel inside is not really reflected in the way you present. I mean, it is reflected to some extent, but just because you feel terrible, it doesn't mean that everybody can see it. So once again, when you're presenting and you feel nervous, believe me, it's normal. Everybody experiences some sort of anxiety. Don't admit it, just keep going and try to do your best. Okay guys, that's it for now. I really hope that those tips will help you to become a better presenter, but most importantly, I hope that utilizing those strategies will help you to build more confidence and to destroy that anxiety, that fear of presenting. Now, obviously, this course is about communication. I don't want to get too deep into presentation skills, but if you'd like to see a course like this, let me know, because I've been thinking about creating a separate course just on public speaking plus on presenting in front of the camera. So let me know if you'd like to see something like this.